So when we as Foster and generally open science advocates, when we argue to applicants, to individuals to adopt these strategies, we put up a number of reasons for it, which have a different level of proof behind. But one is that it improves your visibility and impact, and that one is probably the most obvious. That's why you are here after all. You're here to present your poster, your work, so that someone else could hear about it. And open science just multiplies that. It also networks research. You want your data, no matter how useless to you, to be used by someone else. It wouldn't make sense to keep everything that you do in Excel spreadsheets and a hard disk somewhere locked up. It makes sense to have it in a long-term repository so that it gets you citations, it leads to your paper, and gets used by someone else. And then it would go on to this argument of generating serendipity, and that could be a benefit if it happens to you, but it's really most useful at application stage. Again, for the application concerning, if you were to adopt these strategies, you could argue that you're setting up the scene for maximum societal impact of everything that you do, whether you can predict it or not. But the one that is probably most difficult for both applicants to deal with, especially if they have focused on fundamental research all their life, is this particular argument, economic growth. And I'll show you some evidence on that. That is now, somehow you have to pay lip service to that application, especially in Horizon. But from all of those reasons and arguments, the one that you really care about as a scientist is this one. If we don't consider this a central pillar to everything we do, then there's no point even attending this conference or even exploring the career path that you're on. Open science is really about reproducibility, transparency, repeatability, reusability, and those are essential principles. So it's not just an extra layer of work we're asking you to do as advocates. We are saying this is very much aligned with what motivates you intrinsically to do science. And it's also aligned with the way you'll be evaluated if you choose to pursue a career that way. So that was the first segment. It's conceptual, high level. Any questions, any comments, anything you disagree with violently? Okay.
Does your organization, for example, give comments on when you are planning how to put your research or how to keep your research open? What are the best ways to spread it out? Is there someone who can comment on your ideas and give feedback?
So this is a European project, so there's a number of organizations that are part of it, and behind it there is a fairly large community that comes from the open access movement that we are now trying to grow up as a movement, become open science movement, so that we cover all aspects. There are a number, this is not the only project, there are a number of other projects. Open Air 2020 actually runs a Europe-wide help desk. Each country has a national, it's not a contact point, it's some kind of national mediator, representative that is there to answer your questions in a way that is relevant to your local policies, national trends, so that we don't give you a generic EU answer. You get a local country answer.
Oh, okay.
So that community has high capacity to deal with any issue on legal issue, licensing issues concerning the publications. Also strategies on if you were to, should you publish everything open access, should you publish everything the way your supervisor tells you to, can you combine the two, for example, right? That kind of thinking. The one myth that is very prevalent is that it's an either-or choice.
Mm-hmm.
Either you publish everything open access because some funder tells you to, but then you bleed impact factor because some of those journals are not high impact, or you publish everything in Nature and Science, but you're not open. Then how do you combine the two? And that was true maybe 5-10 years ago, but the field has evolved now. There is the infrastructure developed by the funder. There is the community to support the process. There are also established and agreed embargoes and licenses and legal solutions, so that you as a, let's say, a fresh postdoc, you know nothing about this, but you want to be compliant so that you optimize the chances of application. What we would advise you as a community is that you go for the highest impact factor that you can, irrelevant of whether that journal is open access or not, because that's how you're evaluated in your career right now. But you then keep, as an author, you are an owner of each paper that you do up to the moment that it is published. So while it is being peer reviewed and you have corrected those peer reviews, peer comments, that is a copy that you own. And that copy you can publish in the infrastructure created by the funder so that it is openly visible and accessible by anybody that cares after a certain embargo of 6 to 12 months. So that way you have picked the best fruits of both trees, you have got the impact factor that you could possibly get, and you're complying with openness as that becomes more and more of a mandate or requirement both at EU and national level. So that's one way to deal with both problems in the immediate term. Now, as this evolves in the next 5 to 10 years, the expectations are that most journals will have some form of open access, and that's just how things will evolve. But until we get there, you don't want to compromise your postdoc or career position. Best way is to play both fields.
I'm from India, and in India I've seen when you apply for any post of assistant professor or scientist, they give you point for every paper you publish, and they will give you higher point if you publish a paper in a journal with high impact factor.
Yes.
On the other side, you say focus on impact factor, distort what matters in science.
Yes.
So as a fresh PhD, why should I not consider the impact?
No, you should. You should. So when we say the impact factor distorts things in science, we're talking really long term, beyond your postdoc career. In general, as a discourse, it causes problems. Now, and the funders are paying attention to this, and I'll show you a slide later from the UK where the way your performance is measured will always, the impact factor will be important, but other things will become important too. And if you only focus on impact factor, you are not well placed to be well measured in future. So that's why I'm saying that short to mid-term, you don't have a choice. You have to perform to the need to publish in high impact factor journals. But in parallel, there are strategies to make sure that all of it is open and you're complying with mandates like this. Right?
How will you change this mindset in general?
Yeah, it's a huge struggle. And I've been advocating for 10 years. Change is slow. It has taken 10 years to have a mandate. It's probably even taken more. So it's a big struggle. But I'll show you a couple of slides later on at evaluation. It does hurt if you don't do it. So that's for sure. As you would if you've totally avoided high impact journals. That would be silly too. We're not saying that.
Would it be possible to get this handout?
Yes. Okay.